down, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Ambition is a fickle thing. When it comes to toy design, being ambitious can sometimes push things over the edge and sometimes make things crumble under the weight of expectation. Especially at chug scale, when you can only do so much at any given price point. How far do you truly go? The evolution of fembots across the generations line has been a bumpy ride, but in my opinion, I think we've reached a good spot. It could be a lot better, but for what we have, it's still pretty good. Gone are the days of just reusing the same backpack is everything system over and over again, especially when it makes no sense. As it turns out, you can just make a fembot like you'd make a standard transformer. Just integrate the parts into the design properly. Simples. With that said, very few releases have hit the apex of what I think the style can achieve. Really, it's the Bumblebee Movie RC mold and Legacy Chromia, and even with those, they've still got controversy surrounding them. Also, Rise of the Beast RC is probably in there somewhere, but for the sake of argument, let's just focus on these two. But yes, how dare Bumblebee RC be a deluxe and not a core class? She should be a core class. Wait, no, not like that! And then you have Chromia, who isn't really a Cyberverse representation at all. But in fairness, her own line mate wasn't particularly either. Although these toys were fantastic in their own rights, they had quirks that meant the community wasn't particularly happy with them. And it seems there's a curse with official fembots because that's where we are today. The difference here is that the quirks are from the ambition. Was it truly a good idea to push this figure to the limit? Was it all worth it? Greetings, Cybertronians. I'm DrLockdown, and today's diagnosis pertains to Age of the Primes Deluxe Class Solus Prime. I'll admit, upon seeing the leaks for the 13 Primes, I was a little bit annoyed, to say the least. Oh great, another group of gimmick characters that's going to clog up spots that could literally be taken up by any other character? They said as if the aerial bots weren't doing the exact same thing, and were also awesome. Perhaps it's because I always go into newer toy lines cautiously. I've been burned with the transition from Siege to Earthrise before, but between the concerns they'd not be able to live up to the hype of the last trilogy, and the feeling that this whole thing was very corporate, I don't know, I was a smidge trepidatious. Then I saw some of the photos and, oh, cool, I guess. Oh, it's kinda nice. Yeah, no, not feeling it. Least Vector Prime was confirmed to just be the same Legacy one again. A fantastic toy, by the way. But yeah, turns out they were fine at worst and looking pretty nifty at best. With one exception. Upon first seeing photos of Solus Prime, I was absolutely smitten. I don't think I'd seen a deluxe that was this stylish in a very long time, and she was the kind of figure where looking at her, I genuinely could not tell you how she transformed. Honestly, she was probably my most anticipated figure of the year, followed closely by Star Convoy and the remaining Siang Culture Trainbots after that. Of course, often when something like this happens, you have to temper your expectations. Let them run wild, and you can accidentally end up with the thing being overhyped. Nothing worse than being a disappointing figure. Well, actually, no, a shit figure would be way worse, but you get the idea. So let's shift that aside and actually look at what we got. How does she do on her own merits? Well, out of the box, whoa! Yeah, it's got its issues, but hot damn, this is an awesome Cybertronian alt mode. It's basically a futuristic racing truck with some jank in the trank, sure, but still delivering a killer design. Right off the bat, it hits you with the 1-2 punch of two gorgeous purples. It's sort of like a real grade Gundam, differentiating between two shades to make it seem more realistic. And I mean, you've got multiple sprues, why not go for that subtlety? And both shades are lovely right off the bat. You've got the deep, rich and shiny frame pieces, as well as the paler, more reserved shade with an ever so slightly metallic fleck to it. It's super subtle, you'd practically need a microscope to see it. But it is there, and it does so much to bring this to life. Of course, none of that would make much sense without a solid sculpt to back it up. And fortunately, it really does. As mentioned earlier, you've got a super sexy, low-to-the-ground sci-fi racing truck. Cybertronian? Not particularly. The Primes sort of suffer from the Siege thing of looking too Earth-based to seem alien, but since this also has to appeal to kids without the benefit of knowing who this is or screen accuracy, I do get it. And hey, the Siege alt modes were fantastic, so basically getting something similar again is a non-issue. And this really is a fantastic alt mode. The vast majority is basically comprised entirely of angles, and it really leans into it. Sloped windows, even on the back, sloped sides, the dual angles on the front. They so easily could have made this flat as a pancake, but I love how they almost gave it a pincer look between between the two wheelhouses slash cow catchers on the side and the monolithic grille. I've honestly never seen a vehicle like this before, fictional or real, and it's doing things for me. Its obvious mark has given real thought to where everything would end up, and Onishi has translated that design to plastic form near flawlessly. And yes, for those not aware, the man responsible for engineering this figure is the mad lad behind some of the most interesting figures of the past decade. Even with figures that I don't think function very well, you can always tell he's tried to do the best with what's given to him. Usually issues arise from budget constraints or finding footing within the line itself. Nevertheless, the way this truck comes together is, for the most part, really clever. Yes, there's kibble involved with the top section and grille, but the rest of it is all real robot parts, and I kinda love it for that. Not that I hate faux parts or anything, I literally just covered a figure that was worse because it insisted on doing it real. It's just a wonderful continuation of what we've seen prior. I mean, he's even used subtle panel techniques to fill in the gaps that you could barely see anyway. Now that's clever. Perhaps too clever in some ways, but we'll get to that in a bit. For now, I think what really sells this as a motor truck of doom is the wheels. These are monolithic, balancing wonderful blending with the design whilst still being a statement themselves. With the way the back tires stick out, it creates the illusion of size with the ones at the front. Now that's cool. And me dead, they're even pinned. Combined with how dense she is, it really rolls around quite well. And hey, at least it makes more sense than old shit piece from 2 weeks ago. Seriously, I don't get this figure. Now, for the most part, this mode is pretty solid visually. Structurally, it's solid as a rock, but visually, yeah, it's mostly okay. Until you get to this part. Yep, that is blatantly the apron just sticking out the back and the thighs plainly visible. This has been a pretty big point of contention with detractors of this mold. Everything else is pulling triple time to bring this truck to life. Then you have this shit plastered on the back willy-nilly. And sure, I get it, it's less than ideal. In a perfect world, this would be filled in with panels and shit. Hell, honestly, if they wanted the sides of the legs to have more kibble, this could have easily filled this shit in. I mean, hey, 3D modelers, just add a little something at the back here and bada bing bada boom, problem solved. But at the same time, I don't particularly care. It's a space truck, so some leeway should be given, not to mention it is a deluxe that is trying to wrestle with a very untransformable design. And if I can forgive this shit on a figure I really don't like as is, I can easily forgive this shit. The existence of way worse truck beds aside, the apron blends in reasonably well. And the thighs being painted silver actually does quite well in making the back seem like a racing frame for off-road parts. You're seriously telling me you couldn't see this alt mode being released under the Hot Wheels brand? So no, I genuinely do not find this an issue. It could be better, as practically everything could be, but considering it's a deluxe, there's only so much you can do. It's not like it's not living up to the budget. You've got dual purple shades, you've got gold paint practically everywhere, you've got pinned wheels, you've got density, and hey, just put your attention on the gold shins of the back, masquerading as taillights. Won't give the weapon storage a pass though. The dedicated side ports look naff, and the turret configuration on the top, although it looks a bit better, sits way too far forward. I know a lot of people love this configuration, and more power to them, but I just think it looks a bit naff. Not even blast effects can save it. Ah well. Would have been nice if it's stored in the torso, though I get the difficulty in getting that to work given how complex this thing is already. But yes, it's a smidge undercooked, but like, it's weapon storage. Genuinely, who actually gives a shit about weapon storage? And seriously, in the face of everything this mode does, it's essentially a non-issue. Fact is, this is a wonderful return to form with space vehicle modes in a way that I just haven't gotten from the other primes. Primer is solid but boring, the Fallen and Macadam both just seem okay, though neither are out down under at the time of uploading this, so I could be mistaken. Onyx is off being a furry doing his own thing, Vector Prime is gunning for a completely different aesthetic as he carries the weight of danger-inflicted worlds on his shoulders, and Nova Prime, not counting aside, really suffers from the budget allotted, though that may change in the coming weeks. Fact is, out of the existing 13 and not 13 primes, Solus wins on the alt mode front. She's exactly what I wanted the primes to be in these modes without even realizing it at the time, and she perfectly does everything she can at the deluxe price range. Perhaps that range is a problem in itself to some, but as far as this mode goes, for now, this is good. And the transformation easily lives up to that quality. Kinda. For the most part, it's functionally really good. It's a very clever conversion. Everything does really interesting things. But, as I'll get into later in the robot mode, some bits do have a tendency to fall off. Just if you're not careful, you can perfectly transform this without anything falling off, which I will show you right now. But it is a thing that can happen, so just take your time, don't rush it, don't ham-fist it, it'll be fine. And of course, once you get past that, it's a fantastic conversion. First thing you want to do is bring out these panels here, like so. That will will allow you to bring the arms down like so. Then you want to gently angle these panels out and start moving them forwards. If you bring them out really quickly, this panel can fall off. As I mentioned earlier, don't ham-fist it, just take it nice and slowly. We'll fix up the rest of the arms later. You want to bring up the apron like so, untab the legs like so. You bring the knees forward like that. They actually can sort of peg in there, but they don't really need to, considering that accesses the knee bend. I don't know why they've got that peg there, it's a bit weird. Anyway, you can see I've sort of separated them by accident. Oops. You bring up these sections like so, open up the wheel, which will allow you to bring out the foot and the heel spur, and close the wheel again. Then you rotate it like so. Then you bring this panel back just a little bit, and that will allow you to rotate the waist 180 degrees. You want to take the head out of there using that tab. It's a little bit annoying, but it's fine. Then you bring down that panel there. Then you want to come to the front and use these butterfly joints and get these into place. And the backpack can collapse over there as well, I guess. You don't have to do it in that order specifically. You can really do it in any order you like. I love the panel wizardry on the arms. You bring out the wrist like so, but it's on a ball joint, so it still gets that wrist motion. I love when they do this, and I wish a lot more Transformers would have this feature. But then on top of that, those panels from earlier actually fold up and cover the cavity. Not something they had to do at all, but it's still just marvelous. Really simple, but really cool arm transformations. Anyway, last but not least, you want to bring these panels into place. They'll sort of lock in place there, as you do on this part here. Sort of a soft click. You can also rotate them into place however you like, and rotate these down on the double hinges, and we are done. Just seriously, hell, that is a killer conversion. It's simple in all the right ways and complex in all the interesting ways. Because you have to be a little careful with it, I don't find myself flipping it back and forth constantly, but it's not one I dread doing either, and I love what it does. Top tier deluxe conversion. No complaints from me. Well, I mean, issues with some of the bits falling off, but as you saw, it's perfectly possible to do without. So, in general, no complaints from me. Sometimes I wonder if Solus here was actually a design where they figured out the robot mode first, then worked backwards. I mean, it's entirely possible, at least from the way the legs come together, but I say that because hot damn, she looks absolutely divine. This is seriously the kind of deluxe design that shouldn't exist. Even a few years ago, something like this would have been an impossibility. I mean, not only is it a picture-perfect replication with real bits as kibble in all the right spots, not that faux parts are particularly bad, and not only is the backpack basically non-existent, but it's a Mishima design. Like, this off the bat should not work. I mean, the source material has got to be one of the most unappealing, untransformable fembot designs I've ever laid eyes upon. As if it were slapped together by an intern over the course of an afternoon. The design is not appealing, and yet somehow they translate that into one of the most gorgeous robot modes I've seen in a long-ass time. I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised, though. They somehow made one of the best leaders in recent years out of the worst live-action Optimus Prime design. The one with no discernible kibble, yet this figure somehow converts like a dream. Still, at least that design had some fans. Was anyone asking for an accurate Solus Prime, let alone a genuinely good semi-accurate Solus Prime? How the did they even pull something like this off? Probably because Mark took what worked, amplified it, and used other elements from other continuities to make up for the shortfall. The head, for instance, is way closer to the IDW renditions, with the helmet design from the 2005 continuity in the face of the 2019 run. And seriously, thank God they went this route. Not only does it sidestep the issue of accuracy to a weird show that barely anyone genuinely likes anyway, but on its own, it just looks really good. The crown blends the swerving tower she's mostly known for having with bulky, chunky prime ears, giving her a real regal look, amplified by the piercing green eyes. I love the choice of eye color. It's not one we often see in the franchise, and it's great to see here. The expression might be a little dull, but when put up against every other element of the design, it really doesn't register. And the hair, which itself is a very controversial element, has been tucked away solidly, most likely for the engineering, sure, but it allows them to include it without putting off a lot of collectors. The body the head sits atop amplifies the regality to the max. I'm honestly shocked they were able to do the shoulder pauldrons as well as they have. Perhaps by virtue of being real vehicle parts, they're a lot bulkier than her inspirations. And it works for the design. They go from incidental, well, we have to put something here, to square up, motherfuckers, we're about to bring this hammer down. No, that is not an Overwatch reference. Get your mind out of the gutter.
The punchline is pull!
I'm also enamored with all the extra gold highlights on the body. In vehicle mode, they were pretty cool, but here, they're pretty much what make this design. Dotting up the rest of the body to break up the purple, it just looks absolutely gorgeous. Its use isn't as all-encompassing as photos suggest, maybe 2 spots on the shoulder, the crown, the shins, and some lovely stripes on the apron, as well as the hammer accessory. It's not actually that much in the grand scheme of things, but it feels like it does more than it actually does. It's sort of the inverse of Primer, who does have a lot of paint in subtle areas, but none of it particularly comes across well. My only gripe with it would be the yellow that sits within. Often the gold acts as a frame around a yellow core, and said yellow is pretty wispy. Much like my last review's choice, I get the yellow is one of the most difficult colors you can do, but still, this is pretty naff. Thing is, the gold surrounding it is so resplendent that you don't tend to notice it that much. It really just blends into the gold, not taking away from its power. I'm not going to act like it's a non-issue, but it is an issue that you can easily tune out. No complaints with the silver though, covering the corset, thighs, and toes. Nice and shiny, yet not too overbearing. Sort of surprised you don't get any on the forearms, but when the shoulder pads look this good, it's hardly a cause for concern. Speaking of, I love how the panels from vehicle mode fold over the wrist cavities. It really works wonders in making her feel premium as shit, almost on the level of a third-party release. Combined with the ball joints in the wrists giving her full swivel motion, these sections become super posable. Honestly, I just love all figures with flip-out wrists to use this style of joint going forwards. It uses no extra pieces and has no drawbacks I can really think of. And the remaining articulation is also balls to the walls. Full shoulder pad range, wrist swivels, waist, ankle swivels, and tilts. Butterfly joints? Like, since when do we get these on deluxes? I know this comes from the way she transforms, but they still engineered her so that she could have them in the first place. And yes, I'm aware it's all in service of the accessory, the forge of, I forget whose forge this is. Yes, it's a gimmick for the weapon, but the gimmick is articulation itself, and that's pretty cool. It is very difficult to get this lass in a pose that doesn't look dynamic. Despite having a design that shouldn't lend itself to extensive posing, she moves insanely well. They even cut the waist above the apron. Do you know how annoying it is when they keep putting it below? I get it's an engineering thing, but come on, this is just better. Now, of course, accessory-wise, you have the hammer, and it splits into a bunch of bits that don't really accomplish much. I guess the grenade counts as something, but really, the main hammer is the star of the show. It's so perfectly in tune with the character and blows the previous versions out of the water. One of which I'm not taking out of storage because she's crumbled to pieces. Clear plastic joints, who thought that was a good idea? It also does have storage on the back, but sadly it doesn't work that well. Still, a small price to pay for the back being clean as a whistle. This isn't even a backpack, this is just her back. Fantastic stuff. So, what does that leave us with? Well, a fantastic looking, fantastic feeling, fantastic posing robot, right? Shouldn't that make it perfect? Well, it's perfect as long as you don't look at her Achilles heel. Literally in the heels in this instance. The biggest issue people have with this figure is its solidity. It's not so bad that you can't have fun with her, but it is something that comes up in average play. Basically, you have 3 primary points of failure: the shoulder panels, the wrist covers, and the ankle swivels. I've also heard the shoulder pads themselves can come undone, but as long as you're gentle during conversion, it's not usually an issue. But for those 3, the first only really comes up in conversion, and if you're careful, you can get around it, so I'll let that slide. The second, yeah, this is a bit of an issue. Squeeze too hard and they pop off pretty easily. But again, I can let that slide as you just need to grab it from a different part. But the ankles, well, given the way they're designed, you always unconsciously go for this part to rotate, and whenever that happens, oh dear. It's really frustrating because the actual ankle tilt looks super weird and out of place. I am glad we have an ankle tilt, but every time I go for it, the ankles just fall apart. And the worst part is, it's not quality control. You can't avoid these loose parts. They affect every copy. See, when it comes to Transformers releases, many people seem to conflate build quality with quality control. I mean, if a joint is loose or a bit falls off, that's gotta be quality control, right? Well, not necessarily. Quality control is about finding issues that have units with them, removing them from the supply chain, then rectifying the manufacturing process if need be to ensure consumers get a high quality product. Say a figure doesn't come with an accessory, or you're stuck with 2 left feet, or somehow one of the pieces isn't given enough plastic and the mold isn't fully filled in. You go online, but find that most copies of the toy aren't afflicted with such. That's quality control. It's not guaranteed, and worst comes to worst, you buy another copy or take it back to the store to swap. I remember my Legacy Nemesis Prime coming with a broken head. It's nasty stuff, but Gamesman was quickly able to set me up with a replacement lickety-split. This sadly isn't the case with build quality. When you're stuck with an ailment of this nature, all copies are affected. Build quality issues are when something is wrong with the design or production itself. When something wasn't accounted for and now all releases are f***ed. not. Maybe it's something minor like loose tolerances. Perhaps it's a misassembly where the pieces don't align. Or maybe it's something far worse, such as the figure disintegrating over time. Or even worse than that, right out of the box. It doesn't necessarily have to be that bad, but a build quality issue is unavoidable no matter where you source yours from, unless it gets reissued with said issues rectified. Fact is, every figure release is going to have quality control issues to some degree. Shit's not going to be perfect. Things are going to get out there and people are going to write complaints online. It's even why stolen toy reviews exist in the first place. For all the secret dealings that happen behind the scenes, they are fundamentally QC rejects. Figures that were never meant to hit store shelves. The difference, fundamentally, is that build quality is for everyone. There's no escape if they fucked the design or the tolerances or the materials somehow. You're on your own. This is why Solus Prime's leprosy is not a quality control issue. The question isn't whether yours will stay on during play and conversion. It's how long they'll stay on for. This is by far the most criticized element of the toy. Forget the aesthetic, forget the alt mode, bits should fundamentally stay on if they are meant to stay on. But here's the thing, they kinda already do? Yes, them being a bit wibbly is an issue, but is it really a figure damning one? So you know the feet, shoulder panels, and wrist covers like to pop off. Okay, so don't be ham-fisted and don't get poses done in those places specifically. I get that it's hard for the feet given where they feel like they're supposed to angle, but at the same time, it's far from something worth writing the whole figure off for. You're seriously going to ignore all the awesome sculpting, paintwork, engineering, articulation because a few bits like to fall off? Do any of you remember the Revenge of the Fallen era? And it's not like we haven't seen this shit before in recent memory either. The Scrap Hook family of molds is notorious for having issues with this, especially from truck to robots. Why do these get a pass, but Solus, which is way less structural, doesn't? I'm not sure what kind of double standard we've got here, but it's definitely some type of it. That's sort of the way I feel about my own personal issues with the design. The chest section. I've never liked robo mammaries. Beyond not making much sense, they just feel gratuitous on a robot in a way abs or muscles don't. Like having a corset? Cool, snazzy, elevates the design. But couldn't you have put anything else here? But the thing is, 1, this is accurate to the original, and 2, am I just going to ignore everything this figure does well because she happens to have breasts? No. She's still brilliant in every way. What point is there whinging over such a minor design choice when it's basically doing everything else right? And that sort of brings us to the other big fandom complaint, the size. She is a deluxe. That shouldn't be an issue, right? Well, here's the thing. Fembots are always deluxes. Even when it would make sense for them to potentially be a bulkier Voyager, nope. Deluxe time. Deal with it. Seriously, the last Voyager-sized female Transformer was way back in Power of the Primes. That's kinda disappointing. And that's basically the other issue a lot of fans have, the fact this design should have been a Voyager. And yes, I fully do agree that female Transformers shouldn't just be petite. Give me leader class Striker, Hasbro. Stop being cowards! But also, would this figure benefit from an upscale? In the greater tapestry of Transformers design, sure, it is a bit disappointing to get another deluxe fembot. But in a vacuum, everything here is achieved practically perfectly for the size. An engineering system like this, with articulation of this level and paintwork to this degree, on a deluxe it's essentially pushing things to their very limits. On a Voyager, I'm not particularly sure that would be acceptable. You'd want more, you'd crave more. The fact is, this design is good because she's a deluxe. So although conceptually a larger one might be better in plastic form, we have what we have, and what we have is real fucking good. Solus Prime is probably one of the most ambitious mainline deluxes Hashtag have ever done in the past few years. Smashing aesthetics together that shouldn't work, imbuing articulation well beyond the standard, and painting this thing to the nines. Logically, it shouldn't work, and in plastic form, there are cracks showing. Bits do fall off, cohesion in some areas could be better, and fundamentally, she is another deluxe fembot. She is part of a long line of conceptual adequacy, and at this point, we should be requesting higher. But even taking that into account, I can't help but call this thing spectacular. A 5 out of 5 figure isn't a perfect figure. It's simply a figure that goes above and beyond in almost every area, delivering peak Transformers design. And folks, this is peak Transformers design. I still feel like I need a bit to decide whether she'll take her place along with my favorite deluxes of all time, but my gut is telling me she will in due course. Is she the next step in fembot engineering? Well, not quite. She's brilliant in similar ways to other fembots before her, but she is fantastic, and for that, I think Hashtag deserve a little credit. Yes, her flaws cannot be denied, but neither can her brilliance. She's just wonderful. simply wonderful. But as always, fan and public consciousness is a conversation, so drop your thoughts on the further evolution of fembots below. Is she worthy of the progression, or do you think she is not enough of a step forward to warrant such praise? Do the good qualities take hold for you, or do the build quality concerns cause too much anguish? Perhaps, who would you like to see them do next in terms of mainline fembots? Striker? Splendid Convoy? Your mum? And as always, remember, there's a context for everything. Till next time!